Hi everyone, this is Crystal and I'm back with another video for Hip Kit Club. Today's assignment was to make 3 cards and I'm using the July kits for this assignment. We also had a sketch, so you saw it there just a second ago. It had lots of concentric circles and a big title and some foliage. I am starting out with some mixed media, so you can see I've already gotten started here. I'm just kind of playing around with the color kit from this month. I wanted to make a sort of plaid from this stencil and the yellow and pink colors from the color kit. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And you can see my first couple attempts are not very successful, but I do actually get one to come out. My problem was that my brush was too wet, so I switched to a dry brush and that solved the problem, and you'll see here in just a second that I was able to get a pretty good plaid. But not to worry, I will use all of these little bits here soon. So I'm just kind of getting some color down on the page, and then I play around quite a bit off camera and get a couple full pages of just some fun color splatters on the page. So here you go. Here are the 2 pages that I was able to create. You can see that plaid there at the top didn't turn out too bad. And I'm going to cut some circles out of these just using my die cut machine. So I just use my manual die cut machine and those Sizzix dies. I did that off camera since it's kind of big and cumbersome. And I just cut lots of different sized circles. And now I'm going to create the base for my card. So I have a sheet of cardstock from the cardstock kit, and I have cut it down to 6 by 12, and then I just used my bone folder to fold it in half, and that's going to be the base for my card. So I'm making 3 6 by 6 inch cards, but I want to add some more pattern on the back of that card. So I am cutting down some other paper from the kit this month, from the July kit, into just slightly smaller than 6 by 6. So I think I cut it about 1/8 of an inch off of each side, and I'm going to layer up all my pieces on that. So you can see I have a bit of fussy cut flower from one of the other papers in the kit. That's from one of the Just a Little Lovely papers, and I am going to add my title on top of that, and it's just going to be a really simple thank you card. I just kind of laid everything down kind of randomly on the page. I wanted the circles to kind of tuck in with each other, and I really liked the way that that looked, so I'm just going to start gluing everything down to the page, and I'm going to let some of the circles hang off the side of the card and just trim it down. That gives the illusion that it kind of continues off the side of the card, and I really like the way that that looks. You can see I'm kind of mixing some of the patterns that I created with the mixed media on the background to get a couple different looks. And my cat decided to join me, so she will make an appearance here in a second. And then I'm just going to adhere that fussy cut flower piece to the center of the card as well. And I think I add one more circle before I add my title, or my sentiment rather, since this is a card and not a layout. I'm not generally a card maker. This is not something I do very often, so this was a bit of a stretch for me, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I really like the way that they turned out, and I think I'll actually be able to use these pretty easily. So I added the word you. That's from the puffy stickers that were in the kit from the Just a Little Lovely collection by Pinkfresh Studio, and then I'm going to spell out the word thank in the gold puffy stickers that were in the kit. So it's obviously a thank you card. Just to beef it up a little bit more, I guess, and give it a little bit more oomph, I'm going to add some of the die cut flowers. These were an exclusive die cut pack in these kits. All flowers and foliage, so I'm just choosing ones that kind of match the color scheme that I have on this card. I'm staying in those tones of pink and peach with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of teal in the foliage, just to bring in a little pop of color there. So just kind of sorting through all of these flowers, picking out ones that I want to use, and then I'm just going to tuck them behind that fussy cut flower and behind the circles, just kind of all around my sentiment, and that's just going to add a lot more depth and interest to the card and just make the whole thing a little bit more interesting. So once I get all of these little floral pieces right where I want them. I'm just going to add some glue, mostly to the stems that I tuck in, and then leave the floral parts that are sticking out a little bit more loose, so they pull up from the card just a little bit. I don't want to add too much dimension since it is a card and it's going to have to go into an envelope, but I do want to give it a little bit of shadowing. So I glue some of them down and I leave some of them kind of sticking up, just again for that added interest. And then finally I'm going to add some enamel dots that were also part of the kit from the Pinkfish Studio, just a little lovely collection. And then that's going to finish off this first card. So it came together actually pretty easily, and this one is the one that's most based on the sketch, using all of those circles like the sketch showed. I kind of go a little bit further off of the sketch in the next few cards. So for my second card, I started with a die cut. This is one of the cut files that are available on the Hip Kit Club site. And I cut it to just smaller than 6x6 so that it would fit on the front of a 6x6 card. And now I'm just going to use the color kit, the Lindy Stamp Gang Magicals that were in the color kit, to kind of watercolor this this cut file. So it's a cut file of flowers and leaves. So I started by coloring in the leaves. I used a bit of the blue and the yellow sprays, and I'm just mixing them to get different shades of green and just shading in all of these leaves. And I'm not going to make you watch this whole process. I'm going to skip ahead here in a second so you can kind of see all the different shades of green that I was able to get from just these two sprays. And I'm starting to add a bit of a darker bluer shade now. And then just filling in all of these other leaves, and then I'm going to go in with some of just the straight yellow and add some yellow to the flowers, and then I'll bring in the pink from the color kit as well and mix that with the yellow to get different shades of pink and yellow and peach, just to match the papers that are in this kit, so that I can use this cut file in conjunction with those to create my second card. So just painting it in really roughly. I'm not trying to be perfect. I just want to kind of do a color wash over the top of this cut file. So like I said, not being too super perfectionist about it, just kind of getting some color on the top of these flowers and leaves, and leaving the border that was part of this cut file, leaving that white, so that it creates some separation between the cut file and the paper that I'll add behind it. So still just filling things in, mixing different colors, trying to get different shades of pink and peach on the card, and yellow as well, just to keep it interesting. And there you can see that's it all done. So my sentiment for this card also came from this month's cut files. I used part of a cut file to create the title, It's Summer, and I am just going to back that with some vellum. So I cut it from white cardstock, and I'm just using some vellum, just a scrap from my stash, to back this, and it's going to sit over the top of that cut file that I just painted. So just using my fine line bottle to glue it to some vellum, and then I will fussy cut around it to create my sentiment. There it is on the vellum, and here it is all cut out. So through the magic of editing, you didn't have to watch me try and fussy cut all of that out, but it's already done. So I'm going to start with a white card base for this one. I'm just taking one of the sheets of white cardstock from the kit, and again cutting it down to 6 by 12, and then I will crease it in the center and use my bone folder to fold that over. And then instead of adding the piece that I watercolored directly to the top of that, I decided to add another piece of paper in between there. Sorry, my cat was playing with the scraps of paper on my desk. So I'm going to use this one from Pinkfish Studio behind the cut file, just to give it a little bit more color. There's lots of color in that cut file, of course, but there was also lots of white space, so I wanted to make sure it was plenty colorful. So I'm going to add this little piece to the background, and just gluing that one straight down, and then I'm going to add some foam behind the cut file itself to give it a little bit of dimension and create some shadowing behind all of those flowers and leaves. So I've already done that off camera because it took me quite a while to cut the tiny pieces of foam to fit behind this cut file, but there you can see the little foam pieces, and I'm just peeling off all the backing, and then I'm going to stick it down to the card. So I wasn't able to get foam behind some of the pieces, so it does kind of float in some areas, but I did add foam to the very outside of the cut file, so at least that that outside border, it has foam around it completely, and that's going to keep it up off of the card base enough that I don't have to actually have foam behind every little piece. So to adhere my sentiment, I'm just again using my fine line bottle, just adding it to the parts that where there's the white cardstock and not where the vellum is, so that you can't really see the adhesive once it's all done. I'm going to stick that down, and then I'm going to add something heavy on top, just a magazine that I had sitting nearby. Actually, it's the Flow Book for Paper Lovers. But it's a heavy, thick magazine, and that's just going to weight it down enough to make sure that all of the little bits stick together and that this card stays nice and flat. To finish this one off, I'm just going to add a little sentiment that was from the die cut pack, from the exclusive die cut pack from Hip Kit Club in the kit. Okay, so on to my third card. So for this one, you can see I have a couple more die cuts, a couple more cut files from the cut files for July. I have a pineapple and then a sentiment, a title that says cool. Again, that is just part of a cut file that was available for this month. I just wanted the word cool, so that's the only part I cut. And I'm going to start by backing all of these with some different pattern papers. So I started with the pineapple. I added some of the kind of greenish, yellowish paper from the Pinkfish Studio, just a little lovely paper right there at the top of the screen. I added that just to the top part of the pineapple, and then I'm going to back the cool sentiment with this Dear Lizzie paper. This is a navy blue paper with some pink kind of swirls, and I'm just going to back the whole thing with that paper, and then I'm going to use the little pieces that were from the inside of the letters to make sure that I can align those little circles at the centers of the O's so I can get them just in the right spot, and then I just peel that out. And I'm going to let all of this dry completely before I fussy cut all the bits. But again, I don't make you watch that, so here in just a second you'll see all of them all done, and they're ready to go. So for my base for this card, I'm going to use the blue cardstock that was in the cardstock kit, and again, just cutting it to 6 by 12, and then I am going to crease down the center and fold it in half with my bone folder. So my blade was super dull on my trimmer, which is why I had to use my scissors to trim all of these down. I needed to replace it, but I couldn't find my replacement blade at the time, so I do that before the next video. But for this one, I had to use my scissors just to trim everything down and get all those little edges off of the paper. So that's what I was doing there, and then I'm going to use the blue part from this paper, again from Pinkfish Studio, also part of the July kits. I'm going to stick with the part that's mostly blue with a little bit of pink at the top, and that's going to be my background for the cut files to sit on this card. And I'm just making sure that I get it trimmed down enough so that you can see the blue border of the card base around all 4 sides. And then I'm just going to play around with how I want this to sit. So because these are both pretty big elements, there aren't a lot of options for where they can go on the page, but I did have a few different ways I could use it. So I just played around a little bit to get it exactly how I wanted it. And I like the pineapple off to the left-hand side, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. And then adhere the background to the card base as well, since I know that that's not going to move. And then I decided to pop up the cool part of the sentiment on some foam. So I just got some fun foam from my stash, and I'm just cutting it down and adding it behind this word. But again, I don't make you watch that whole process, since it does take me just a few minutes to get it done. Here I am just peeling off the backing, and then I can stick that right down onto the card. So this one was a pretty simple card. It came together pretty quickly. Once I have that sentiment stuck down, I'm just going to use these gold thickers to add one more word to the sentiment so that it will say stay cool. And then I'm going to go to the die cut pack again to see what I can find to add just a little bit something extra to this card. It's looking just a little bit plain. I don't have a lot of room since those were two really big elements that I added onto the page, but I feel like it does need a little something. So I go to the die cut pack that came in the kit. This is the Hip Kit Club exclusive die cut pack, and I find another pineapple, and I think, oh, that's perfect. So then I remembered that there were also pineapples in the other Hip Kit Club exclusive pack. This is the kind of floral-y die cut pack. So I went through and picked out all of the pineapples, and I'm just going to play around and see how I can fit them onto the card. I think I only end up including 2 of them, although I did try to get more on. But I think I only end up with 2, just kind of tucked to the side of the title next to the Y of stay. And then I think that just about does it for this card. Oh, I do add another little sentiment piece from the Pinkbrush Studio phrase stickers that were part of the kit. I add one just below the title or the main sentiment to add just a little bit something extra to the bottom of this card, and then that's going to be it. So this one came together super quick. It was pretty simple with those large cut file elements to just add a few things and make a pretty cool card. So there are lots of close-up photos of all 3 of the cards coming up here at the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed seeing my process and maybe found some inspiration. And if you're like me and not normally a card maker, then I strongly encourage you to give it a try. It was actually a lot of fun, and now I have 3 handmade cards that I can use to give to the people I love. So I highly encourage you to give it a try. It's actually a really simple process, and I was happy to use up all the little bits that I was able to use on these cards. So thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope you found some inspiration, and yeah, I will see you all back here very soon.